Ooh, and it's initialized. It doesn't
Okay.
even give you a break, this new
Does this sound okay?
Sounds good.
Great.
Alrighty, we are back. Episode number 43 this time. 40K Fireside podcast. We're back in the live format again, and this is probably how we're going to keep doing things. We've had really great feedback on this format, and we're trying to not only make it good for podcast listeners, but also the visual side of people that like to watch it on YouTube. And what better than the great visual topic we have today of the great balanced data slate? It's finally here. It is hot off the presses like an hour or two ago. So Vic and I have actually been not chatting about it too much, so that we're going to be chatting about it and getting our you'll be getting our impressions the first time. So it's great to have you here. I just want to give a shout out beforehand. We're going to be using some content generated by our friends over at StatCheck. I would recommend going checking them out. They have a great spreadsheet that highlights the points impacts changes, which is really easy to use. So perhaps I'll put that in the description as well. So much love to them. Go and check them out. They'll have content discussing this as well. But in the meantime, we're just going to dive straight into it. There's been the most comprehensive balanced data slate to date, which is fantastic to see. It has also been accompanied by points updates and points changes in the most nuanced fashion that we've seen so far, which is a direct reflection of Games Workshop, I think, investing in to the competitive game design balance person. So aforementioned Josh Roberts. So really awesome to see, and I think straight out of the gates, this is a tick, an A plus on the first piece of work, I guess, released to the game. So congratulations, well done, and yeah, fantastic, Vic.
Yes. Oh, it's good you mentioned Josh because he's actually in the MetaWatch article
Hmm.
for this balance update, and I wasn't sure if we should even put it out there, but it's a thing. So he's a very very good competitive player, ex Team England captain, and he's kind of it shows immediately with the stuff he's saying that he's in touch with the competitive side of the game, and I think that really helps.
Hmm.
This data slate, the timing of it is incredible because we were planning on just recording something today, and literally as we're about to record, the balanced data slate dropped. So we spent an hour just trying to get our hot takes together for this. But the changes are interestingly probably in line with what we would expect, which is amazing. It's kind of like the strong things got nerfed and in a way that you'd expect, and then the weaker things got buffed
Hmm.
in a way that you'd expect, and then the stuff in the middle got tweaked around in a way that you'd expect. And I like it. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts as well. We've had a quick glance through, but we can have a bit of deeper discussion now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things which I don't understand, so that's going to be really fun because Vic and I have actually quite a different army kind of coverage at this rate, don't we?
Yeah, we
I've been
really
focusing on
do.
different things, you've been focusing on different things, but we've both played quite a bit of Eldari, so
Mhm,
that'll be interesting as well. Speaking of the boogeyman,
mhm.
the devil, it looks like night spinners have been removed from the game. So, um, I'm just going to rejoice at that one because night spinners were not only completely broken, they were super OP. They had way too much damage, way too much board control. They moved 14 inches. I'm super glad that they've been basically removed from the game, and here's how they've been removed from the game. So let's jump straight into the changes. Eldari. I'll jump straight to the night spinner one, I guess.
Yeah.
The Night Spinner is now gone from you cannot advance,
Mhm.
-2 to move, to the Basilisk trait, which is -2 to move, advance, and charge. So it still lets you advance at a minimum of 1 as well. So your advance roll can't be. Oh, I've noticed something here. From its move characteristic and 2 from advance and charge rolls. So they've kept the rolls. So World Eaters, if you don't make a roll, you can still get your maximum advance.
Oh,
But
very cool.
otherwise, you can still advance a minimum of 1 because you can't be reduced by less than one. So Night Spinner's taken a huge beating. This is only positive for the game. And in addition to that, I'll flick to the spreadsheet here and I'll see if I can find it in real time. Oh, it's never going to work.
It's there.
Oh,
It's up 30.
oh, there we go. Night Spinner, 180 to 210. So 30-point lob on top of that. Notably, though, Vic, it did keep its damage.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Night Spinners have taken a second points nerf now. So I don't think they're awful because
Hmm.
that ability is still good.
Yep.
But they've taken Eldari's taken sequential nerfs. Like loads and loads of things have got changed to the point where are you really going to invest 630 points in 3 Night Spinners? And the nerfs here seem very targeted towards that particular triple spinner Wraithguard Yin Khan build.
Yep.
And Night Spinners is one element of that. Up 30 points, that's a big points increase. 210 points is a lot for
Yep.
that particular vehicle.
Yeah. All of a sudden, at 210 points, you're actually evaluating: do you get your value back over the course of the game?
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe over 5 turns, you probably still do, but you're sacrificing 90 additional points on top of what was the triple spinner ignite list previously, right?
Yep, and the ability is still good. So it's in the perfect spot where you might take it for its utility, just a single Night Spinner, so you
Mhm.
can get a bit of control on the board, which I think is a fantastic place for indirect to be. It's probably the correct direction to go. Don't do damage, give us utility.
Yes. Yeah. So actually, the Night Spinner is still good if your opponent has one big melee brick, right?
Mhm.
That's its ideal scenario where it still has good damage, and if they have one big melee brick that wants to advance and charge at you, boom, fantastic. So against World Eaters, the Night Spinner is still actually probably pretty good, right?
It still works against fly. It still works against vehicles. It's a
Yep.
very powerful debuff there. It can allow you to control primary and control the positions the opponents can move. If they only have one unit in range of being able to deploy teleport homers, and you just ping that unit, then perfect.
Yep. But one is substantially easier to play around than three.
Yeah,
Which
it's
is
a different aspect, isn't it? Because
yeah.
before 3 synchronizes with the yin con and gives you too much output across the game.
Yep.
Now, if you're taking 1, you're doing it for utility on top of a much more interesting Eldari list behind it.
Yes. And excellent segue. The Incarn. Once in each of your turns if this model is on the battlefield. So the Incarn no longer going to be a multiple teleporting unit, just once per turn. So you're not going to be able to. So most commonly, if it's being played now, it'll be you shoot something, you kill something, and then teleport to it, and then charge something else. And I've noticed something here. Actually, this is quite sneaky. It says each of your turns.
Yep.
So the hated aspect of you accidentally shooting something, the Incarn teleporting away, it's no longer there.
Yeah, it lost its defensive teleport. It's still offensively very good because it can still charge immediately after teleporting.
Yep.
So you can get a lot of spike damage in a particular area on the board by teleporting the Incarn in. But now you can't like restrict what your opponent can shoot so that they don't teleport the Incarn out accidentally. So defensively, it's very fragile in my opinion for the points cost.
Definitely. And you can no longer bounce it back out of combat in the turn that you would leap it forward as well.
Yeah, you lose all the defensive tricks. You only keep the offense.
Yeah. And, honestly, the Incarn offensively is not that impressive for 350 points.
Yep.
Obviously, its mobility is fantastic, but if you look at its pure offense, it's actually not that good.
There was a time where -1 to wound on the Yin-Con just means it
Hmm.
was unkillable.
Yep.
That time is well past us now. Everyone knows how to deal with and kill a Yin-Con, and they've
Yep.
got it in the back of their mind. So I think the Yin-Con's probably is a cool pick, which is perfect. It's not a strong pick in my
Yes. Now, Wraithguard also nerfed along lines of how other kind of shoot back, quote unquote, has been nerfed.
opinion.
Can only shoot the enemy that shot it, which is really big because Wraithguard only have 18-inch range.
Mhm.
So Wraithguard also took a hit in points.
They took a
For
quad nerf.
a
4
quad
nerfs.
nerf. Yeah. So Wraithguard have gone up 40 points from
Yep.
340 to 380.
Yep.
Then they've been nerfed. That this was one of their strongest abilities, and this is how many times has this ability been nerfed? By the way, it's like the third
This
iteration. This one
This
ability.
one is weird because every other army has the only the rule that they can only shoot what they've been shot at.
Yeah,
So it just brings it in line. But the
yeah,
big nerfs are the other two onto the
yeah.
Wraith Guard.
So
Fate's
the other one
Messenger.
being the largest nerf probably of the whole
Oh yeah, go
faction,
for
right?
Phantasm. Yeah.
Phantasm is infantry only still. It was always infantry only, right? I think.
Yep. It got changed to infantry only. It used to be able to do on a Wraith Knight.
Oh right, yeah. I thought the red was only the most recent of recent updates. Yeah.
No, no.
So Eldari infantry, instead of moving flat 6, you're moving d6, which is a complete game changer for the stratagem. This has probably been the most busted and abused stratagem I think ever printed. I mean, it's just insanely broken. Your Wraithguard used to move 6 inches, but with Phantasm, it doubled your movement every turn.
Mhm.
So that was insane. Now that it's D6, it's a completely different skill set. I mean, yeah, you can't really plan around having huge turns with Phantasm, and it's going to be only much better on units that a minimum of 1 inch can get you in and out of a ruin, probably, right, Vic?
You want to know something? I still think if you're playing Eldari, you're going to use Phantasm almost every single opponent's turn. Like I
Yeah,
think it's
totally.
still one of the most effective stratagems there
Yeah.
in the game. at d6 inches, which is completely random. But you're right. You have to use it in a different way to cut angles. You can't be way out in the middle of nowhere,
Yep.
but you can get a plus d6 inch move to your movement towards the enemy with the character to try
Yep.
and extend your threat range and stuff.
Yep.
That's
And
perfect. It's really well designed now.
most notably, there is a character in here called Fuegan who's on a 25 millimeter base. So
Yeah.
even if you move a minimum of one, you can get him back on the other side of a ruin, which is quite strong.
Mhm.
However, I believe I don't know how many points he went up, but I
He
heard it was
didn't. He didn't. Only the Wraith Guard
ooh,
and Night Spinners went up. So there's no point changes for Eldari except those two.
that's still quite strong. Fuegan's pretty aggressively pointed, and with Phantasm, you could be onto a ruin outside of a ruin, guaranteed. Still pretty strong.
Yeah, I think they've done the right thing with Eldar. I mean, the one other nerf that they've taken is the reduction in Strands of Fate, on top of a Fate's Messenger small nerf. But Fate's Messenger
Yeah,
doesn't matter anymore.
yeah.
Um, and
So
I think the combination of those things just brings Eldari into a much more techie kind of MSU army, which is what they should be.
yeah. For those that don't know as well, instead of 12 Fate dice, you're going to be operating with 6. And then Fate's Messenger can only be used on the bearer instead. So most commonly you would have that on the Spirit Seer. You would Fate's Messenger save for your unit, which would be the Wraith Guard, obviously, or Fate's Messenger the damage or the wound or the hit roll. Now you can only use that for the bearer, so it's probably going to be looking a lot better on Death Jester or a Troop Master, for
Yeah,
example,
that's the
which is
main
still pretty
use case
strong.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. It's worked out very well for Harlequins.
I think this Eldari Fate Dice change is absolutely massive, though, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
For example, we saw, take the list I played at World Champs, 0 Farseers, and no other ways to manipulate your Fate dice. You just
Yeah.
rolled 12 dice, and that's what you had for the whole game. Oftentimes, that was still, every time, that was still incredibly powerful to operate with, and you
Mhm.
felt like you had almost 10 rolls that would still impact the game quite significantly.
Yep.
Now, where this really changes a lot, though, is that in larger dice pools, you're going to have a lot less variance on average.
Mhm.
But if you roll 6 dice, you might roll 1 4 up, right? And then all of a sudden, that's like, okay, what am I doing here? Then you mulligan, and you're mulliganing on 5 dice instead of 6. So it's a 16% decrease, right? So
Yeah.
you can roll 5 dice. And what if you miss on 5 dice? Are you rolling 4 dice at that point? You know,
No, I've thought about this, and I think this is the perfect nerf for Strands of Fate dice
yep, cool.
because you never mulligan. You always keep the 6. It doesn't matter what the dice are. But
Yep,
at the list design stage, to take advantage of this particular faction rule, you have a unit of Guardians on your backfield. You have
yep,
a Farseer in your list, and
hmm
that's how you like push the synergy of your
yep.
faction rule,
And
and that is perfect.
I 100% agree. And that was going to be my point is that on the old lists, you had 0 synergy with your Fate dice,
Mhm.
and you just rolled 12 and it was still
Yeah,
incredible.
free dice, just go for it. You don't need to
Yeah,
play around it at all. You just got them.
exactly. Just straight up buff. Boom, done. Now it's like, well, I've got 6 dice. Okay, now I need to invest into it to make it more consistent. So if
Correct.
I'm investing a Farseer, maybe I want to get more dice because then then it's twice as powerful because they're going to be generated into 6s. So really awesome. I think this is a great change, and it means it's one of those things where if you want it to be good, you have to invest into it,
Yep. I think
which is
this
awesome.
brings Eldari down to a really good power level.
Yep.
I don't think they're the strongest army in the game with this,
hmm
but they're still good. And
Definitely still really good. I mean, guys, the stuff that didn't get touched,
Mhm.
I'll just go through it. Like, let's look at some of the standout units here. Falcon, for example, and then War Walkers still competitive at their points. We saw them previously. Warp Spiders, fun. Fire and Fade and the Autark Wayleaper, all the same. You can run Fate's Messenger on an Autark Wayleaper, for example. There are genuinely a lot of options here out of the existing list that already existed.
yeah,
Sure, you might not have your huge hammer unit, but you might play more of a tactical card, MSU variant as well, right?
yeah. I mean, both Fire Dragons and Swooping Hawks have not had a nerf at all, so they're
That's
very aggressively pointed for what they
yep.
are. Shadow Specters are also really
Perspective's good.
cheap.
Yeah,
And of course, you mentioned Warp Spiders as well, which are probably one of the best infantry units in the game.
yep,
I think just an army built around aspect warriors with your guardians in the back, your farseer at the front, a couple of transports, you get a wave serpent with a few harlequins inside. The best armies for Eldari are going to be balanced MSU armies.
yes,
Beautiful. Good job.
yeah, nice, lovely. And there is a faction we're going to be talking about later, Drukhari, that got pretty big buffs.
Oh,
Can you soup in
across the
Drukhari?
board.
You know?
You can if you run Yanari.
Okay.
But they've done it very intelligently. all like apart from the points cost, the majority of buffs for Drukhari are based on if you are Drukhari, you get their
Ah,
ores.
lovely.
So Yanari doesn't benefit.
Damn, that's seen
Perfect.
through my plan. All right. So Aeldari, I think great targeted nerfs. I really like they've actually addressed some points, but in addition, they've changed a lot of the rules, which meant that if there were points changes as well, would have hurt them significantly. So they haven't actually just completely mowed the faction down in one go, which I would have been for as well. But
I
great.
think Eldari have got play. So if you're an Eldari player, I think you should definitely experiment with this because they're not dead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, their quality of attacks is still very powerful, and that coupled with fate dice is still a pretty powerful mechanic, I think.
Yeah, and you still got a free CP from the Autarch. You still have Fire and Fade, which is
Yep.
incredibly powerful.
Yep.
But now you have to play around those tools and a wider range of tools. The skill set required to do Eldari well now has gotten much higher.
Yep. Well, deploy teleport homers and behind enemy lines still functionally the same thing, right?
Did they not get changed? Did nothing change on those?
I mean,
I'm not sure.
swooping hawks are the same prices.
No, I mean
Wheeling-
on the secondaries. I'm not sure.
I don't know if the secondaries are going to change.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good. I hadn't even thought about secondaries. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're getting ahead of myself.
Because Homers was quite good, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, damn. All right, cool. This is a little spoiler, hopefully, for me later on. Love it. Cool. We're going to go on to Chaos Space Marines that have taken another big nerf. Arguably the best faction in the game, sort of, I think the game has moved on a little bit since they've been super dominant, but obviously Manachima winning world champs with them. You could argue they're the best army in the game, and I think you would have a solid argument there as well. So do you want to run through, Vic, you obviously played CSM a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of run us through from top to bottom what you think of each of these changes.
I'm going to start from the bottom because the Accursed Cultist change and work my way up. So the Accursed Cultist build, I think, is probably one of the strongest builds.
Mhm.
It can be countered, but you have to skew your list or build with that in mind whenever you go to a singles tournament. I think they're incredibly powerful, and I think it's off the back of a potential typo on their datasheet because they should not have OC2. Like the pattern that they've used across the game is that kind of battle line infantry get OC2. Why are the Accursed Cultists OC2? So they've been dropped down to OC1, which is in itself a massive change.
Yep.
But on top of that, they had an issue that you bring back models in both players' command phases, like how
Yes.
Wraithguard used to be with Spirit Seer.
Yep.
They've changed that now, so it's only on your turn. So survivability down, objective control down. Points increase as well on them means that on both the Dark Commune, which is the characters that attach to them, and the Accursed Cultists, mean that this unit is a cool tech piece to have one of them, but not an army, not a unit you can build your entire army around, which is perfect because if they'd missed this and nerfed everything else, we would have a problem.
Yeah. That would be a big miss. So Cursed Cultists also took...
How many points? I don't know either.
Cursed Cultist, okay, only went up 10 points.
And then the Dark Commune?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Went up another 10 points. So the Accursed Cultist is times 2 for that, right? So they went up 20 points plus 10 for the Dark Commune. So 30 points for a brick.
30 points.
So
that's pretty significant, actually.
It's a lot. It adds up, right?
Same as the Night Spinner, realistically. 90 points on your list.
Yeah, it's kind of painful. And there are obviously changes. Look, just looking down here, you can see the Chaos Lord's gone up.
Yep.
Is that 20?
He's up 20.
Oh!
Honestly, I mean, he's had a good time.
Yeah. And then the Chosen?
Chosen up
20. Oh, boom. Get him out of here.
As well. The second time he's gone up, he's up 20 as well. Which
Obliterators again.
He's gotten a bit of a double tap. Obliterators, I don't think deserved it. But,
and Warp Talons.
Only a small point. And I guess Warp Talons went up 10 as well.
How much are rubrics? The same?
I think this is just a little bit of a dated area.
Got it. Yeah, so that's that build. That entire build with Chosen, Forge Fiends, and Accursed Cultists, it's gone up like 300 points or something ridiculous there. So rest in peace to that. But that's not the only thing that changed. Because a big part of CSM was the use of two very powerful stratagems. One is Profane Zeal, which is the undivided stratagem, which gives a Chaos undivided unit reroll all hits and reroll all wounds. They've changed it to just reroll wounds, which is fantastic. Interestingly, it sounds like you can't even use it on another unit for reroll ones to hit and wound. So you can only use it on an undivided unit.
Yep.
So that's different to all of the other kind of marked stratagems.
Yep.
Fair enough. It's one of the most powerful stratagems. Now it's just a really good stratagem.
It's also it was one of the most powerful stratagems, but it's just one of the stratagems in that every army would have used every single turn.
Yeah, wherever you
We're
can.
all hit and wound. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Battle tactics.
Even the reroll ones to hit and wound is
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yep.
So yeah, fair play. That's a correct change, I think.
Yep. So you can only reroll the wound roll. So this was
Yep.
primarily targeted on. It is still a battle tactic by the looks of it.
Yep.
Okay? So you can still use it on the Lord, but the Lord, when you go sustained, won't be rerolling to hit. So you'll get a lot less hits on average.
Mhm.
But you will still reroll the wound roll. So, an undivided chosen squad or an undivided whatever squad, still rerolling to wound is maybe not bad. And to be fair, the strat's still really good.
No, I think it makes no difference for Chosen, in my opinion. I think
Okay.
Chosen are just as good because they already have reroll ones to hit anyway, because they're
Mm,
undivided. So they're basically the same spot, but what it does is it impacts shooting quite a bit.
yes.
So I don't know. I think you'll still see undivided units, both of Chosen and potentially one Forge Fiend out of reserves.
Yep.
Maybe you'll take like the Gatling guns rather than the ectoplasma cannons to really double down on the reroll wounds.
Cool.
Hard to tell, but I think the stratagem is still good. I think the big hit is for like your Nurgle Forge Fiends and things, not having the option to reroll once
Yes.
to hit and wound. I think they've done this correctly. It's not a massive nerf to the stratagem, but it's enough.
I think this is still in line with what we would consider like really good stratagems.
Yeah. Nurgle
Let's go
strat?
on to the next one. Nurgle strat, for all those haters out there, 18 inches now. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, we've all been 12 inches, 13 inches away and gone to shoot something and they Nurgle strat. 18 inches now, which is a huge break point for a lot of guns in the game, to be honest with you. Being 18 inches away from a chosen squad is, or whatever is inside too, is a lot further away than 12 inches. So if you've got like a fire and fade mechanic, you can be within 18, you can fire and fade back, which means the squad that you kill the rhino with maybe can't actually shoot you or can't charge you the next turn. So 18 inches, I love it.
I think it's a good change. I think they should do this across the board for any non-blown up, can't be targeted things. And hopefully that's the direction they'll move in. But it synchronizes very well with the other change, Dave, which you're over now.
Whew.
Not being able to mix the marks of your unit and the rhino. So you can't have an undivided unit inside a Nurgle Rhino anymore. You need a Nurgle unit inside a Nurgle Rhino, which changes the dynamic of the army quite a bit, in my opinion.
I'm not a CSM expert, but I don't know if they needed this nerf as well, if I'm being honest.
Oh, you think so? I think this is unfortunate, in my opinion. I agree with you. You're the only one who's going to agree with me, though, Dave. I'm very happy.
Yeah, because for example, you've got the Nurgle strat is 18 inches now, which means that you can move 6 inches up from your deployment zone and shoot them, which basically everything can do. Sure, the Cursed Cultist build has been nerfed to the ground. Okay, that's fine. So we don't have to worry about that. The undivided Forge Fiends, once they come down and shoot, you can shoot them back. So they're still strong. They reroll ones to hit naturally, right? Because they're undivided big.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you've got the points increases as well. Now, automatically, you're taking 60 points on 3 Lords. You're taking, another 60 points on 3, potentially 80 points on 4 Chaos Chosen units. So that's 140 points. Your Forge Fiend, if you're running it, is going to be up another 20, 160 points. So, honestly, and I'm sure you could, side grade a lot of the stuff to Legionaries or something like that. But the core part of that build has been nerfed quite a lot. So that'd be at least 200 points on that build. And in addition to that, it doesn't hit as hard. So, we'll have to see where they land. But I don't actually. I wanted this nerf to happen, the mix one. But honestly, looking at the rest of them, I don't know if they needed to get hit that hard. To be honest with you.
Again, I think they're a good army, but I don't think they sit at the top because CSM already are a threat saturation army. At some point in the game, you put your whole army into the opponent and you hope for the best.
Yep.
If that works out, you smash them. If it doesn't work out, you get a drawish kind of game.
Yeah.
That's why CSM was so good. If they just get knocked down that chunk, the threat saturation approach is gonna fail a number more times than it would have otherwise.
Yep.
And I think they have to look at other builds within CSM. Now, CSM, like you mentioned, have a lot of side grade options. Like Warp Talons can go to Raptors. Forge Fiends and Obliterators can go to Predator Destructors. These are all good options. Chaos Bikers can get included. You can go really wide MSU. And it's to be seen if that kind of works well. I think there's room for innovation here in CSM now, but just a slightly different playstyle.
Yeah. So are you playing a Nurgle Transport? Are Nurgle Chosen any good?
No, I think you go Slanesh or Undivided. I would probably say Undivided because the Undivided strat still really
Yeah.
helps them kill anything.
Yep. For sure. It's super interesting. We'll have to see where CSN land. They've been pretty dominant for quite a long time, though, so I'm
Yeah,
not too opposed to them getting a little bit of a chunky nerf on them.
yeah. I think this will knock them towards that 50% mark, and I think they'll be just a cool army in the game. Like same with Eldari. I think they're both going to be on a very similar power level, in my opinion.
Yeah, awesome. Now we've got my favorite faction.
Yeah.
Actually, got the buff I wanted it to get so
Oh,
long.
there you go. Get those
Oh, man.
Kazakin out.
I said this exact thing as well. Is that the orders were so undynamic? They needed to add back in when the officer jumps out of a transport. You get to issue the order. This was one of my favorite mechanics, actually, for playing Guard in 9th edition, where you would, have the OP Barbican's key. You would jump your unit out of the transport, then you jump your officer out, all of them, then teleport. Stuff like that. I love this change. Not because I think it's super broken, right? It doesn't like blow the wind out of anyone's sails. Like, oh, that's so OP that you can actually order something. It just kind of makes thematic sense, Like,
Mhm.
officer jumps out, the troops jump out, boom, get out there, get into combat. So I think it's really cool. Now, I think they've missed the mark on the points changes for Guard.
Oh, do you think so? Yeah, I was going to ask you about this.
The reason they've missed it is because Guard is an army with a lot of data sheets. Now, to only nerf one, the Manticore, which I think was a good nerf, I think they should have done this. Manticore was pretty powerful. The issue that they've ran into is that a lot of the side grade options that were previously nerfed in the other indirect iteration are actually perfectly playable.
Mhm.
For example, the Basilisk is still 130 points. I think that is a fantastic option at the moment. I even think something like a Wyvern is potentially really good now.
Mhm.
So, and even the Bombast Field Gun is not terrible. And then you've even got the Forge Fiend one, which I think is enormous, though. So they've obviously they've hit the one thing. Okay, great, Manticore. I'm glad to see they didn't nerf things like Kaskin and stuff because I don't think they're overpowered at all. I would have liked to have seen some buffs or points reductions on something that has been awful for a long time. I'm going to call it out. It's the Valkyrie,
The Valkyrie?
which
No, they wouldn't do that. No flyers got buffs.
I know, but the Valkyrie is also 200 point
Yeah, I think
dead weight.
all the flyers are rubbish across the board now, which is perfectly fine.
So yeah, it's interesting. I think Guard are going to be in a really good spot coming up. I already think they were a really good army. Like I had huge success when I played them in both of our team tournaments. This buff enables you to do some really cool combos.
Mhm.
For example, you've chimeras with Kaskin in them. You can disembark your Kaskin. Then from within your Kaskin, you can disembark your Ursula Creed. Can issue orders to your Kaskin, both units, which is great because then you can then shoot them and use the Fields of Fire stratagem. Or your Ursula Creed unit can disembark with Ursula Creed attached to a unit, and then it can order itself twice, which is really cool because oftentimes you want to go maybe +1 save, +3 move, or +3 move and then +1 to hit. Really cool. It makes a lot of these little officer units like sometimes potentially viable, like a commissar, right? 30 points for being able to order once in the game. You know, maybe that's a really cool breakpoint you want to experiment with. Sergeant Harker, maybe he joins a unit of 10 Catachan jungle fighters because he can order them when they come out. Off the top of my head, little stuff like that I really really enjoy. So it's a small little change, but makes a lot of difference. I think.
I think they've been very clever here because technically, looking at the win rate of Astra Militarum, they're quite low.
Mhm.
A lot of weeks they're below 50%,
Yes,
but they're deceptively strong. I think their actual power, when played correctly, is quite strong.
yes,
And they could have easily buffed Guard across the board here.
yep,
And I'm just glad that they didn't. And they just targeted Manticores with the points. They gave them the rules that they should have and just let them go out into the world. And we'll see what
yep.
happens by the next data slate.
For sure. So I'm really excited for them. They've done a good job. So we'll have to see how it pans out on the guard. I'm really excited to play them. Obviously, a huge guard collection. So
Yeah.
we're looking
And
to hit the ground running.
now, technically, I think Guard might have the only decent indirect in the game, which
Yeah,
is
that's
correct.
true. I
Correct?
mean, the Night Spinner in some cases is still good, but
Yeah, but you're not going to build your list around it. The
yeah,
way Eldari will design now is just avoiding indirect probably and just go for more MSU, forward MSU.
genuine
Whereas,
question: is
yeah,
that not thematic in the whole 40K
correct.
universe?
I agree. The only army that should have moderately good indirect is Astra Militarum, and it
Yeah.
works.
Hmm.
Pushing armies to play in the play style that they should be playing is the correct direction to go with game design. And I think they've done that with Eldari and Astra Militarum.
Yep.
CSM, I'm not fully sure that's really worked out there. They've kind of nerfed melee in a way because the mixing in the rhinos doesn't work.
Yep.
But we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. All the way to Bombast Field Gunland.
Oh no!
All right. Next
Move
up, we
to
got a
sisters.
passion project of yours.
Oh yeah, right at the top. First one, number
Getting up.
one.
Oh,
Oh no,
we're there.
there we go. So sisters are interesting because they're a army which is in the middle as well,
Mhm.
but they've been showing very strong win rates. But based on GW data, they're bang in the middle.
Yep.
And the armies bang in the middle tend to get kind of a couple of nerfs. If they get nerfs, they'll get buffs to other things. So in Sisters' case, they've had a few points increases. So they've had the Arcoflagellants go up in points, and the Triumph get a nerf to its ability. Both of those are impactful, and
Yep.
so is the little point increase on the Exorcist.
I'll bring up the Arcoflagellants. Here we go.
Here we go. Yeah, so they've gone up 20 points. 150 for 10
Yep.
is expensive, but it's still good. I think you still take them. The Exorcist, yeah, that's too expensive now. And Morven Val went up and the Paragon Warsuits went down to give you some reason to just take the Paragon Warsuits on their own, which is excellent.
Yep.
The Retributor squad going down is great, but only by 10 points is not enough. So the Retributors are so bad, Dave, but they're a source of multi-melter in this list that desperately wants multi-melter.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the list has lost a massive ability to kill vehicles now because the Triumph has had a massive nerf in the Dataslate itself.
Yep.
Where its aura of using unlimited fate dice was one of the key mechanics for the competitive competitive sisters lists.
Right. Okay.
You built this combo unit in the middle that was basically unkillable when you had enough miracle dice and would just kill anything it touches when you had enough miracle dice. Without that, all of a sudden you are really scraping to get through vehicles and just generally have any kind of consistency and survivability in your list.
I've got a curveball though.
Okay.
Ready for my curveball?
Mm-hmm.
What about Imperial Knight options?
Yeah, get some Imperial Knights in there. Yeah, I think that could work. But I think none of the little knights got a points decrease, but the Canis Rex did.
Canis Rex got decreases.
Canis Rex is probably the one that could find its way into a sisters list to give them some kind of something on the side.
Yeah, not
Possibly.
an Asterius, whatever that is. I'm just kidding.
But I'll be interested to see what happens with sisters. I think they can open up a few more infantry options. The Zephyrim being 60 points is outrageously cheap for a jump.
They're really good, yeah.
So I can see, triple Seraphim, triple Zephyrim. I love the 30 angels.
Yep.
And just having this really powerful mission playing ability.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because their ability to play the mission and play tactical cards is still going to be really strong, right? It's just a matter of how fast your opponent can table you, almost, if you're playing that style.
Yeah, you just play completely differently. You have a lot less characters, so you can get the Kaldis Assassin back in. You have triple Seraphim and Zephyrim. And then you just take Paragon Warsuits and as much Melty-Melter and Retributors as you can to try and get through, stuff that's standing in your way. And the Arcoflagellants are just in the way all the time. So there's definitely a 2,000 point list that thematically functions. Whether or not it's good on the board, hard to tell.
It's interesting. Sister's one of those mid armies that copped a little bit of a harder time than I think some of the other armies, I would say.
Yeah, unfortunately, really, they might have gone under the radar in this one, but they didn't.
All right, we've got the biggest up and comer, I guess, from the Dataslate.
Is this Drukhari?
Drukhari. I don't know anything about this army, mate. So
okay, Drukhari. I love Drukhari. I think they're very.
You've always been a Drukhari player, right?
You know what? I've been a Drukhari player from very early on, but I haven't played it for a while. They were very, very busted in 9th edition, 8th edition. I don't know, one of those. Almost like through the first half of it, and then I just dropped off it completely. But when I first started playing, Drukhari were quite cool. And Drukhari have been very bad in 10th edition. They have had a fundamental problem that the actual data sheets were too weak. The army had lost all of its kind of identity because all of the melee was bad across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Fixing that with a data slate is incredibly difficult. And I just assumed it would not be possible. But because from experience, they have abilities to change points and add in a few little rules like what you can see here.
Yes.
So they've got a rule here where you get an additional point of AP when you use a pain token. Okay. but that doesn't actually fix things.
Right.
Because that's a little bit more damage. But still, I mean, witches are strength 3, incubi are strength 4. They're just doing nothing.
Yep.
The next bit adds a bit more flavor to it because the Archon gives the ability when you use a pain token to reroll all your wound rolls on a unit. And before, for some crazy reason, they couldn't join incubi, who
Yep.
are actually the bodyguards of Archons. It's just like it doesn't make sense for them not to be together. Now they are. So an Archon unit using a pain token allows you to reroll wounds on the incubi and reroll hits because that's what a pain token does. We
That's
don't
pretty good.
have the actual document, but Drukhari got a new detachment. And the detachment rule is whenever you disembark from a transport, you gain the lance rule, which is
Yep.
+1 to wound. So now you have two particular sets of units that are actually good in combat. The incubi with the Archon at +1 to wound with reroll hits and wounds can actually do damage.
Mhm.
And then you have a unit of witches with Lelit in there who makes them strength 4, an additional point of AP, so they go to AP 2. They're only 1 damage, but Lelith goes to AP 4, and then you get Lance on top, re-rolling hits, and suddenly you have this like tiny little unit that can just mince infantry. Like the unit
Yep.
of Space Marines will just melt to that. And
Yep.
then they've also got loads of cool tricks of jumping back into transports if they kill an enemy unit. After they move, they can get out of transports. The list can be built heavily around melee units in transports, which is Drukhari. So they nailed it.
I'm a little bit worried, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
This is probably like the biggest buff we may have ever seen to a singular faction.
Yes, because it's got a detachment, which they haven't done before.
True. Yes, that's true. But I think this buff, I mean, the Lance keyword, gaining the Lance keyword is obviously insane, right? But I remember when Drukhari were popular in 9th edition, every single one of their MSU units would just trade up no matter what. And their transports were reasonably hard to kill, such that and they had such great reach from them that it felt like they were just, 5 little unit here, 5 little unit there. Oh, it killed your, it cost 80 points, but it killed 120 points worth, sort of thing, right?
Mhm.
So I think they might have gone a little bit over the top, giving them the Lance keyword without having too many restrictions right off the bat.
Yep.
But I'm, obviously I'm excited to see them back on the battlefield. They're a really cool army through and through, though.
Yeah, I think there. I mean, I chatted with some of the Team England guys about it today after the Dataslate dropped, and the opinions are very mixed. I think in singles there are definite lists that are going to be able to counter Drukhari. They're not going to be able to get through certain things, and they're going to die to indirect, for example. Like just a guard army immediately has a massive advantage by being able to kill the transports. As soon as the transport's dead, you no longer get +1 to wound. The melee output just drops off a cliff
Oh,
from
that's
there.
true. Yep.
All of the rules of jumping back into transports disappear if your transports die.
Okay.
Now, it might seem like, yes, a unit of incubi, which is so cheap with an Archon, super cheap, just kills way above its points, and then say it dies. That's a trade up, but that is exactly what Drukhari should be playing for because they're made of paper everywhere else.
Hmm.
So I have a feeling Drukhari will come up towards being one of the more powerful armies in the game.
Yep.
But I think they might be stronger in teams than they are in singles, where you can avoid the bad matchups for them. I think in singles, it's going to be a little bit hostile for them.
I think what I would have maybe have liked to have seen is maybe a nerf to the Kronos ability that just lets them on a 50% chance keep their pain dice.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Kronos are really cheap, only 50 points.
Yeah, and
The new
pain dice.
detachment has way less pain tokens
Oh, I
than
see.
the new
Okay.
detachment, than the old detachment. The old detachment has almost double the pain tokens, and you gain one every turn. In the
Right.
new detachment, you only have 3, and
Yep.
you only gain them from killing enemy units.
Okay, that's
So,
cool.
you were a bit limited on where you use your pain tokens, which means that the shooting back of your army, so like the Dark Lances in the back, you're
Yep.
very hesitant to use pain tokens on them.
Cool. Nice. Well, that sounds a lot better then. Yeah.
It's very interesting,
Yep.
really, really interesting dynamic. And I think it's a very unique army in the game. No one else plays like that.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to be in the back. Really cool model range as well. Cool
Yeah,
models. Really
ultimate
fun to play.
cool.
I think Drukhari is one of those factions where when people play them, they just love playing them. Like they're having so much
Yeah,
fun.
they're very cool. Like even just the mandrakes are just so incredibly cool, and the way that the army plays on the board is actually really fun. It's just they're just rubbish. That was the issue. Now they're not. So yeah, Drukhari.
Mm.
All my other armies are nerfed. I'm not left with anything. Grey Knights and Drukhari. Even Grey Knights got a little buff, but
Did
not
they?
not very much of one. Just a
chat through it?
slightly better anti-tank on the heavy Psy cannon.
Cool.
So there's probably a
Alright,
Dread Knight build you can do with 6 Dread Knights.
Yep.
Whether or not that's good, Dread Knights is still so fragile.
Mm,
I'm not fully sure, to be honest, but maybe there is, because you can focus 3 Dread Knights with your teleport ability to kill a vehicle, which is
cool.
something that Grey Knights just couldn't do before. So I'm excited to see what's possible there. I'll definitely play around with that and Drukhari a little bit.
Yep. Doesn't necessarily put you on an objective though, which is what you need to score points.
Yeah, it just kind of kills stuff not quick enough. But
Yep.
you still have the Terminators and things. Nothing's changed on that front.
Nice. Let's maybe go over World Eaters. World
Mhm.
Eaters were an army I was a little bit worried about being
Yeah,
very strong if they didn't
very
get
good.
a glance. So I'm not exactly sure what these refer to.
Oh,
And
they got lots of nerfs. I didn't read this.
so I believe so. For the podcast listeners, of course, the Berserker Glaive enhancement. I believe this is the one that would go on the Master of Executions. We would roll D3, and you would get plus extra attacks and damage on the D3. So this has just been changed to +1 attack and damage, which is massive because it modifies the characteristic of your weapon before you. It's not like a melter modifier now. I don't think it
Mhm.
just straight up flat modifies the damage of your weapon characteristic. So all that damage gets halved still.
Yep.
Whereas previously it would add D3 damage when you roll it. So if you went into an incarn and rolled a sixth, so you get flat 3 damage extra, which would mean you hit it for like 5 damage flat every time. So that's a huge nerf. That relic was extremely strong in my opinion.
Mhm.
Now,
Oh, this is
this
big
looks
actually. Only once per battle, being able to fully reroll your Blessings of Corn roll. One of the biggest mechanics for getting Angron back was the ability to whenever you kill a unit, you can make a Blessing of Corn roll, and then you can reroll it with this enhancement.
yep.
So only making that once per battle is good. It reduces Angron's return rate, which
I
helps.
100% agree. And also, it's a use case that often happened was that you would go advance and charge and +2 movement. You would then kill your Angron would kill a unit that it's going to kill. You then use your favored by corn enhancement to roll again, and then you get 5 up, feel no pain as well.
Mhm.
So it often let you have 3 of your corn table buffs, which was really powerful as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're still going to get that because the stratagem still lets you roll on
Oh, of
the
course.
table. This just allows you to re-roll to fish for the sixes, but otherwise, you're
Oh,
going
of
to
course.
get the other stuff anyway. But
Okay,
it's still super strong.
I'm an idiot. Disregard me. Uh,
And this is just stops the jackals from being ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. So the Demon Prince ability just gives them a 5 up and vulnerable save, unless they already which they already had gives you a 4 up instead. So they
Yeah, so
previously had a 4 up and vulnerable save.
the 8-bound will get a 4-up invuln, whereas the jackals will not get the 4-up invuln.
Yep. So the Jackal build probably out the building after that as well. Now there are some Imperial Knight changes, but perhaps we should go on to the points changes. Oh, actually, before that, I apologize.
Yeah.
We should talk about Death Guard,
Oh, Death Guard. Yeah,
who
you hit this one.
I think got off a little bit light. If I'm
Yeah.
being
Did
honest.
they get any points changes?
They got some points changes in line with the indirect nerf, but before that, the Death Guard ability was changed such that you can only grenade one additional time. So you can only use it if you haven't already used it, which is good. Oh, let me
Nice.
just
Less
double check it.
grenades.
You can select one model from your army with disabilities, and even if you've already targeted a different unit with it. Yes,
Oh,
so you
perfect.
can
Yeah.
grenade, and then you can re-grenade for 0 CP, only one more time though.
Mhm.
Which is, I think, is still interesting. Like you're going to still play the biologist putrefier
Mhm.
and still get that double grenade. The biologist putrefier also gives you lethal hits on 5s, right?
Yeah,
So
something like that. It's a big, and it has a good shooting attack. It's got
yeah,
like every buff.
there's a good chance you still play 3, which
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
interesting. I thought they would have knocked off the lethal hits ability on one of the characters because that ability is really strong. There's one that crits as well.
Mm.
So Death Guard, I think, got off a little bit light if that's the only nerf. When we go over here and look up Death Guard,
I think they might be one of the strongest armies in the game.
yeah, I mean, Plague Marines only went up for a squad of 5. I mean, they only went up,
10. Okay, so there's a bit
10
of a
points.
points there is. They are taking a hit here.
Yeah, but if you run 40 Plague Marines, like, that's not that many points. Compared to what some armies are taking. World Eaters also get points increases as well. So perhaps there's an interesting case. If we look at World Eaters, World Eaters went up 10 on the 8-bound, 10 on the
Oh,
Exalted
still a
8-bound,
bit to the right.
20 on Khan. They went up... Oh, sorry, do you want me to push over to
Just
the
to
right?
slightly scroll across.
Oh, I can't.
Oh, you can't. Never mind. It's
Oh, it's at the end.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Cool. They went up 10 on Khan, which you always play, 10 on Master of Executions, which they would always play, and then 10 on each of the 8 bound, which you would always play multiple of. So I think World Eaters probably went up more in points than Death Guard.
Yep.
In addition to that, they also got more heavy nerfs to their rules as well. So
Yeah.
a side-by-side analysis, because I think they were around the same power level, potentially. Whereas Death Guard have only put 10 on the Plague Marines and 15 on the PBC. It actually got off the lightest out of all the indirect pieces.
Yeah.
And the Plague Burst Crawler you also played 3 of.
Yeah. I
So
think out of like the line was quite blurred between CSM, Death Guard, and World Eaters.
Mhm.
I think Death Guard probably poke up towards the top of that now.
Yep.
And then CSM and World Eaters, I think, are actually pretty similar, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, Death Guard, their fundamental abilities are still really strong. Their Plague Marines have anti-infantry, weapons which are really strong. They can have firing deck rhinos, which are really strong. Their army-wide ability is very strong. So I think Death Guard are going to be one of the more popular factions. And I think they already were quite strong. They're in our 5v5 team lineup. So I think Death Guard are definitely a winner from this balanced data slate for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Now on to things that didn't get touched as well. Necrons.
Oh, Necrons is a good one, actually, because
Yeah.
interesting.
Obviously, Necrons are reasonably powerful. I say reasonably powerful. They're in the upper echelons of top armies for sure. I'm a little bit disappointed they didn't get some points changes, if I'm being honest. Now, I understand one side of the argument, which is it's a new codex. They don't want to change new codex stuff yet. But I think there were some obvious candidates that could have gotten hit. The Nightbringer, you could have put 15 points on him. You could have put 10 points on the Void Dragon. You could have put 10 points on Ceres. You maybe could have put 5 points on the Plasmancer or something to that degree, right? Like if you just put
Tiny
15
little
points
ones.
on all the Catan, I think that would have been a perfectly fine change and just leave it at that for the time being. So I think they could have gone a little bit further, but at the same time, I do understand why they didn't want to change anything at all.
If we look at it overall, I think Necrons were already near the top at the moment in the current meta.
Yep.
It's hard to say if they're the strongest army. I wouldn't agree with that statement because I don't think it's very clear what the strongest army in the game is at the moment.
Yep.
But if you look at everything at the top got brought down, but the Necrons remained at the top, even the armies just underneath, like Death Guard and things, they also got brought down a touch. The only thing that got brought up significantly was Drukhari, and I don't think Drukhari got brought up above Necrons here.
Yeah.
Guard didn't get touched, but technically they got a nerf. Necrons are the only one that didn't.
Yep. Overall, I think Guard might have received a buff. Well, they certainly received a buff in that their worst matchup, Aeldari, is out the window now. The most problematic pieces there were the Night Spinner and the Incarn, and maybe the Wraith Guard, but not really. And then CSM got nerfed as well, which was one of the other tough-ish matchups. It was actually good depending on how you played it. So Guard definitely got a buff there as well.
Yeah,
so all those people that think Guard aren't good, like, get out of your head. Guard are a very good army now.
We'll see it now. I think people will start experimenting with Guard more, unless everyone just swings over to Necrons, which I think there's a high risk that because already Necrons are the most represented faction all of a sudden outside the Marines total.
Yep.
And I have a feeling that's only going to increase here. So I agree with you. I think it would have been very clever for them to put the tiniest little bits of points changes on Necrons here. One, it looks good. It looks like, look, we are on top of our new codexes.
Yep.
I mean, admittedly, they did make a little nerf to it, but they probably needed to hit it just a touch more here.
Yeah. They made a nerf to an ability that they had made that mistake time and time and time again. The X amount of, unit does 10 mortals, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of a miss on that one, I would say. That's probably the only blemish on much of this, apart from maybe Chaos Space Marines getting nerfed a little bit too much.
I think it's fine, though. I think even the CSM changes, I think when you see them on the board, they will be a good army.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think they need to be as strong as, as at the level they were before. I think they're at the correct level now.
Demons, they got quite good points reduction, but I think there is more restrictions around what you can take now.
Yep.
So the number of non-battle line units cannot be greater than the number of battle line units, which I think is a really cool way of doing it. It's kind of like the the old Disciples of Be'lakor Army of Renown, they used to call it. So that's cool. It means you can't simply spam something that is good. And actually, I think this is a really smart way of balancing armies is that you make restrictions such that if something does come out to be a little bit overtuned, you can't just instantly put 3 on it, 3 of them in your list, and not have it.
What is this rule? Is it?
Yeah.
Is this the ally rule?
I think this is just a normal army construction rule, demonic pact rule.
Fair.
Okay, maybe I should confirm this.
I'm not sure if that's the ally rule. That's because that sounds like it could be. Then it stops you from taking random allies.
Oh,
And
perhaps it is.
And maybe
Oh, yes. I see. Yes.
maybe
Okay.
I'll check.
Scrap that, everyone. Demons got points reductions, baby. Let's go.
Yes.
Let's figure out some demons points reductions.
Correct. This is the ally rule.
Okay, cool. So maybe let's talk about that.
The actual demon army can still go however it likes.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I actually thought that was not a bad change for the main demon army if they got really big points reductions, but cool. Awesome.
Cool. No more just loads of Nurglings. You gotta take some plague bearers first.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really smart nerf for souping. Now, blood leaders went down 140 to 120. I mean, it's always welcome. Blood leaders are pretty poor.
120
blood
is
crushers
so
went down.
expensive.
They are,
Still,
man.
right? Oh.
And they have a 5-up invulnerable against shooting.
Oh.
You know? Why? Like, give them a 4-up invuln? You could give them a 4-up invuln at this points cost, and I think they would just be fine.
It's the built-in deep strike. It just comes at such a premium cost.
Yeah, but at the same time, Necrons have that and Hypercrypt as well, right? Well, more or less. The Changecaster, down 5 points. I guess this is because he can now be souped a lot harder. You would have to take Pink Horrors to soup him in, I suppose. Interesting. Contorted Epitome, nothing super standout. Demonettes, which were pretty good. Well, no, they weren't pretty good. Down 10 points, which might make them okay.
110, yeah, there's a play there.
Exalted Flamer down. Fiends down a little bit. The Great Unclean One, so some of the big guys coming down. 230, he is, pretty difficult to move around the board, but for 230 points, you get a lot of toughness in that back end. I think some of the ones that stood out to me, Keeper of Secrets now, coming in more in line with how they should be in relation to Shalaxi, perhaps. Minus 40 on that one. That's nice. Plague Bearers are still, I'm going to say them now, terrible, I would presume, at 110 points. Rodigus, 230, kind of coming in line with the Grey and Clean One. Seeker Chariot, a bunch of random stuff. Scarbrand coming down to 305. It's interesting.
Screamers at 75 is nice, actually.
What is it?
Screamers. They were already decent at 80 because they already took 1 points decrease from 90 to 80. Now down to 75 is pretty solid for 14-inch moving beasts.
Nice. And then anything else really big? The Mask of Selene. Like, why is this 105 points? I mean,
it's a loan up, the mask.
Yeah, I know that, but
so 85-point loan up for the mask is actually pretty decent, I think.
Right, yeah, but 105 points before when you're an operative from Be'lakor being in your army. Yeah. So what actually went up here? Nurglings went up 5. God, they were 35 points before. How ridiculous is that? Blue Scribes going up 10 as well.
75. So they're still the cheapest loan up that you can have.
Yes, no. Changecaster at 60 will be.
Changecaster is not a loan up. That's the Changeling.
Oh, I'm thinking of the Changeling. Sorry.
Yeah, the Changeling's still 90.
It's been a while. So demons. I mean, I don't think this is going to be the points changes that will skyrocket them into the middle of the pack. I think demons may be still looking like one of the lower armies despite these buffs. I think, right?
Yeah, I think Drukhari got a lot more love than demons on this one.
Yeah,
fair enough. Drukhari was even worse than demons. That's saying a lot.
I mean, demons not great.
Demons are not great.
I will give them some slack in that just because they did so well in buffing one thing doesn't mean that just because they didn't buff something else as much doesn't make it, a job not well done. I would like to see some continued improvements on demons, though.
I think there's some play here, though. I think you can build an army that actually competes to a moderate level.
Yep.
Not at the top, for sure. I think they've done that with Drukhari. They can compete at the top, but not with demons.
Yes, I agree. The Rendmaster didn't go up either, did he? The Rendmaster. Yes, okay. The Rendmaster's still there,
He's still there on his little throne.
He amplifies the damage like crazy, so,
Custodes is the one that I don't understand, because I don't know any of the Custodes rules, but they got buffs across the board.
Yeah.
Their 4-up ward save, ward save. I've been playing so much Old World. Their 4-up Field of Pain thing works against devastating wounds now. Their unit sizes have been. I think the unit sizes are still bad. Yeah, they haven't changed the unit sizes, but they've dropped the points down on everything.
Nice.
So I think they'll be able to get a lot more stuff.
I don't like Custodes, but I appreciate that it's a pretty popular army at the same time.
It's just easy for people to build. It's gold as well.
Yeah, it's gold.
Everyone loves a gold army.
And then, there's some smattering of points across the board here. Votan, I think, rightfully
Oh,
so, they collected that one. Some of the cheaper things have gone up in points.
I
So
think
Sagittor has
that's
gone up
actually a
too.
pretty hard nerf on
Yeah.
Votan, but I think it's probably needed. The army, this particular type of build you make, just max out Sagittars, is probably a bit boring.
It's probably about 150 points on this whole list, isn't it? If you do
Yeah.
units of Hearthguard and 6 Sagittars.
The interesting thing is they bring almost all of the armies they brought into balance in the middle, and they've kind of just left Necrons up there,
Yes.
which might be an issue. But I don't think Necrons was so strong before that it's like unbeatable if people target them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's bad to be the only strong thing in a meta because you can easily counter it.
Yeah, definitely. Like Catan and the Monolith, for example, or whatever, have
Mhm,
some pretty obvious. Like, it's not a datasheet that's impenetrable to all.
right.
It's great defensively against all output profiles, right?
Mhm.
Has a
Yeah,
4-up invulnerable, and then 5-up feel no pain. So low volume shots that rerolls a lot, is actually really good against Catan.
yeah. When the discussion starts becoming like, can I kill a cursed cultist? You start building lists to deal with cursed cultists. Can I kill Catan? Then you start building in the counters to them. And
Yeah.
in every element of your list design, you've always got that in the back of your head, which
Yep.
affects a meta. And it's much easier to do that when there's only one really strong faction. Now, if
Yep.
you have Guard plus the Necrons being, let's say, the strongest factions in the game, that might offer a bit of a challenge because they're two very different types of armies.
Hmm.
So we'll see how it pans out, but I think it's going to be an
Potentially.
interesting challenge for the armies which are not Necrons.
Yeah, potentially Death Guard up there as well, I think, for sure.
True. Yeah.
Now, Marines have been hit a little bit as well. Let's just look at the points increases. Centurion Devastator squad that John Lennon ran at Worlds, gone up 10 points.
John Lennon nerf.
It's not a huge one, though, realistically.
Yep.
175 to 185. Chaplain Grimlatus, I think, is that the Black Templar one?
Yeah, there's a few Black Templar nerfs here.
Yeah.
I think they hit the Crusaders as well, but not by much.
Crusader squads are up by 10 points. Crusader squads are still really cheap.
They're nuts. They're nuts.
This unit is still good at 75 points.
Yeah, because you get free war gear, so they're nuts.
Yep. Deathwing Terminators, I guess, going down. I mean, who likes those anyway? Sorry. Helbrick going up, maybe rightfully so, but he's pretty expensive now at 120.
Yeah, they've targeted that
Yeah.
Black Templars list.
Incept is going up 20 points for 3. Pretty pricey now, if I'm being honest.
130 for 3. I mean, they're an important element of Space Marine lists.
Yep.
But that's expensive.
It's a pretty big nerf, actually. Because they were such a linchpin unit, you'd oftentimes run 9, 1 of 6, 1 of 3. And, 1 of 6, 1 of 3 is 1 unit of 6 is now more expensive than a Nightbringer. Interesting point of comparison. Not direct, though. Lyon L. Johnson, down 30. I've never seen him on the board, mate. Outrider squads, cool. Love to see it down 15. They're a cool unit, I think. And a bunch of just Ravenwing stuff going down as well. Like, I saw this and I was like, man, maybe that stuff's like good now. I don't know.
Maybe we'll have to see. They're doing a lot for Dark Angels there. Black
Yeah,
Templars
we'll do
down,
that again.
Dark Angels up.
Gilliman down 10. Just kidding. They're terrible. Scout squad's only up 10.
Yeah.
I could see them going up 15, but I mean, at least they did put them up. They were ridiculously cheap. And the Whirlwind up 35 points. So taking the same kind of theme in the indirect nerf with the Whirlwind, and I guess basically all of the common units, so to speak, were also targeted. Whilst being honest with you, the Assault Intercessor squads and other chaff units didn't get a huge points decrease, apart from what seemed to be Ravenwing. And notably, what we were talking about before is that the tank platforms like the Ballistus Dreadnought, the Gladiator Lancer, the Gladiator Reaper, and the Impulsor, Hellblasters, stuff like that, basically didn't get changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the go-to list, if I'm being honest. Ennis Wilson's list from the ITT this weekend coming up was very similar to that. He was playing Black Templar with Crusaders, but you could, mix and match those into something else, and your list probably doesn't go up that much, and I think that list is quite good.
I think we're going to have an interesting challenge here because I think people's immediate counter or way of list building might skew towards vehicles. That will be an option across multiple factions. Marines is a key example of that. Skewing towards vehicles can create a situation where people just can't deal with everything. Now that Aeldari are gone and or they've changed. They still have brilliant anti-tank, but they don't have the Wraith Guard unit, which just auto wins vehicle matchups.
Yeah.
The meta's not very well set up for dealing with mass vehicles. Not many factions have the ability to just clear all vehicles on the board.
Yep.
So we'll have to see how that one pans out. But I think we'll probably see Marines skew towards that.
Yep. Yeah, and Death Guard being up there as well. I think you probably still play some Plague Burst Crawlers. And the one thing that I just realized is that if Guard and Death Guard are good, and vehicles are good, it's going to put Aeldari in a really tough spot potentially, such that
Yeah.
the indirect is good into them. And if the big question I have is whether or not Drukhari can field enough anti-tank in their backfield with like Scourges and Dark Lancers that fire and fade to bring enough anti-tank to the table while still having the objective playing MSU stuff that can trade up on objectives. If they do have both of those, could be really strong.
I think Drukhari have a fundamental problem in that they can't deal with the Guard Indirect, because the Guard Indirect not only kills their transports, but it also kills the Scourges, which is what they need to kill the vehicles. Scourges will just melt to Indirect. Anyone's Indirect.
Yep.
So there's a direct counter there, which I think causes a problem in singles, Drukhari, but makes them excellent for teams, because not much Indirect is good at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the Kaskin can obviously pop the transports as well, which is really nice. And then you can even charge them with your Kaskin afterwards because, they're just Drukhari, right? Like, they're going to kill you anyway. Might as well get your 3 attacks up in there.
But no, I think Guard just have a perfect answer for almost anything in the meta. They can play to a close game against anything. It's just a matter of people finding the right builds and learning how to play it properly, because it's a bit of a technical army.
I think Guard have always been like that. They've always had a lot. The problem is sometimes they've had so many options that you need to tick your army list really, really sharply to counter what's going to the meta. And when I played LGT, actually, I tried to do that, but then I ran into a list that I just wasn't ticked against at all and just kind of really fell on my face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but the builds have evolved so much since then as well. So, yeah, really exciting. What is your passing grade, Vic, out of 10?
For this data set, I'm going to give it a solid 8. Room for improvement, but a damn good effort. I think it's very close to being perfect. And this is one of the better data slates I think we've had.
Yep.
Admittedly, it's starting from a much more balanced point than what most of the metas have been that have required a balanced data slate.
Yep.
But I don't think they've done too little. They've just missed a few things.
Okay. And what are some of the misses for you? I guess Necrons Admech, probably a bit of a miss.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen some Admech, both of those. I would have loved to have just seen just a few points, just give them a little sprinkling of something that shows that they're keeping an eye on it.
Yep.
And I don't think it would have harmed the game. I understand there's probably a very clear process to this balancing thing that means that they just can't do that.
Yeah.
But every now and then, I think, especially when the codex drops so close to a data slate, there has to be a mechanism in place to just catch that, especially when it's very obvious.
Yeah. It sets a precedent almost that if a codex does drop, the next data slate maybe won't even affect it at all. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think I agree with everything you've said. I think 8 out of 10 is really, really respectful. I think 8 out of 10 in quality, but 9 out of 10 in quantity. So, we're finally seeing what we talked about previously, was that trying to get closer to that 360-degree balance data slate where we're nerfing top armies, we're fixing some stuff in the middle, and we're bringing up lower armies. I would have just liked to seen a few more armies be brung up a little bit more, and maybe not so much hesitation in potentially increasing the power level of all the bottom armies, like demons, for example. I think is a good example. They've touched things a little bit, but I think they were pretty comparable to Drukhari, for example. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Drukhari have won more outright tournaments than demons have. And if you look at the changes between those two, it's not few and far between. So I think demons have maybe been a little bit unfairly punished in that they have been souped into other armies, for example. But who knows? We've got knights as well that have been. We didn't even cover knights, but they've points reduction on all the things that didn't get played. So that's really good. They've tried to make the big knights more viable.
Yeah, I mean, the one sad one, finishing faction is T-Suns.
Oh.
I got such little time to play with T-Suns, Dave. Like, I kept it secret all the way to WTC. And then I played it at WTC thinking the balance data slate comes immediately after WTC, and it got nerfed straight away. And there's still no changes to T-Suns in here. So they still...
T-Suns are a winner from this, though, right?
Do you think so? Maybe. With CSM getting nerfed, T-Suns at least have a bit of play. That's a good way of thinking about it.
Drukhari could be real scary, though, I suppose, right?
Yeah, Drukhari will just run straight through them.
Yeah.
There's no game in that. There's no game.
Yeah. And then Garda, I think Garda are potentially a good matchup for T-Suns, but I think Necrons might be tough.
Necron should be I guess the Canoptech Court was a good matchup. I'm not sure about Hypercrypt. That could be
Yeah.
That could be
Yeah. Although, the turn-off save not as relevant, but the rerolling wounds is great.
maybe the dev wounds through the monolith, they can spike a monolith down.
For sure. Double Doom Bolt's good there.
Yeah, maybe, you know what, I've got to experiment with the T-Suns.
Nice. There we go. Episode 43. It's been the one that we've been waiting for a long time.
Mhm.
The balanced data slate, I saw a statistic the other day. It had been like 100 and something days since the quarterly update. So it's been overdue.
The thirdly update.
Yes, the thirdly update, yeah. It might have even been less than a thirdly update. It's been overdue, but it's good. Exciting times for the game. Love to see it. I hope. One thing we didn't... Oh, actually, I'm going to downgrade... Oh, I'm going to keep it at an 8. But did they update the missions and secondaries at all?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't got to the rules commentary.
Oh.
That might be a thing.
Wait. I can't stop it here.
You can't? No. Oh,
I gotta see. You had me so hyped up that maybe they had changed that, because that is such a big part of the game.
Yeah,
Rules
absolutely.
commentary. I'm searching Control F. Teleport homers. It doesn't look like it. All right.
No. All right.
I think
the same.
Potentially, a nerf for next time. I would love for them to shake up the missions and shake up the secondaries. Some of them are a bit stale, but since the meta has changed, maybe playing tactical is going to be a lot better. So,
yep.
Episode 43. Catch you guys later. Hope you really enjoyed. Once again,
time.
leave us some feedback and let us know if you do play one of the factions that we basically know nothing about. Then let us know. Is it nerfed? Is it good? Knights OP? Custodies fixed? Whatever. Catch you guys later.
Bye, guys.